Welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving headfirst into literally the most complex object in the known universe, your own mind. We're going to be exploring the foundational work of Dr. Steven Novella, an academic neurologist at the Yale School of Medicine. Dr. Novella poses a pretty profound challenge for us. He says that before we can figure out the world around us, we really have to understand how our brains actually process reality. So we're going to unpack the mechanics of human thought, look at the pitfalls we all share, and learn the incredibly empowering skill of thinking about thinking itself.
Let's kick things off with a massive, mind-bending question. Is a technologically advanced alien civilization visiting Earth? Like, right now? Are they sneaking down in the dead of night, abducting people right out of their beds? Maybe even from heavily populated cities? Are they really crossing the galaxy just to leave us cryptic, geometric messages in wheat fields? Claims like these completely capture the public imagination. I mean, they generate endless books, blockbuster movies, and fierce debates.
And you know, we can take that hook even further. If aliens are here, does the government know about it? Are we living under some massive, multi-generational cover-up to hide the truth? Why are we, as humans, so incredibly drawn to these monumental, fantastical claims? Well, the true topic we're exploring today isn't actually aliens, and it's not government conspiracies. It's about evaluating how we actually know what we know. Honestly, how can we confidently claim to know the answer to these questions, or really any question at all?
To really answer that, we've got to start with the hardware. Section 1, the flawed human brain.
So, Dr. Novella lays out this core premise. We are our brains. Literally 3 pounds of gray jelly floating inside our skulls, made up of about 100 billion neurons that remember, calculate, feel, and deduce. It's our ultimate universal tool. It is our absolute greatest evolutionary advantage. But here's the catch. It is also strangely deceptive. We love to imagine ourselves as purely rational creatures, right? Kind of like the Vulcans from Star Trek mythology, just operating on cold, hard, flawless logic. But we're not. We're human. We have the capacity for logic, sure, but we are highly evolved, deeply emotional creatures, and because of that, our thoughts tend to follow the pathway of least resistance. We naturally favor our feelings and rapid rationalizations over the optimal, purely logical pathway.
And because we naturally take these mental paths of least resistance, human thinking just inherently goes wrong in some very specific, predictable ways. Our brains are absolutely plagued by logical fallacies. We make mental connections that just aren't valid, we operate on false assumptions, filling our heads with so-called facts that are just outright wrong. We completely trust our flawed memories, assuming they work like passive video recorders, when in reality they are highly unreliable and easily altered. And we lean way too hard on heuristics, those down and dirty mental shortcuts. They might be right a lot of the time, but they're wrong often enough to lead us wildly astray.
So, what's the fix? How do we compensate for a brain that basically actively deceives us? Well, the answer is metacognition. That is just a fancy way of saying we need to think about thinking itself. Look, it is crucial to understand that logic and critical thinking are learned skills. You shouldn't expect to be born a master critical thinker any more than you'd expect to be born a concert violinist or ready to play in the NFL. It takes practice, self-awareness, and a lot of systematic effort to overcome our own inherent cognitive flaws.
Which brings us to Section 2, the real-world stakes.
Now you might be wondering, who cares? If someone wants to believe in crop circles, what does it matter? But Dr. Novella points out something absolutely crucial. We aren't just living in the information age anymore. We are smack in the middle of the age of misinformation, and flawed thinking is actually really dangerous to our society, our wallets, and our health. We are dodging everyday information hazards constantly. Open your email and it is flooded with spam and scams designed to steal your money. We are bombarded by highly motivated marketing claims from advertisers who constantly flirt with the line of outright fraud. And we deal with these rapidly spreading urban myths. You know the ones, like the classic friend of a friend story about the executive who wakes up in a tub of ice missing a kidney. These rumors spread with the speed of electrons, and if we lack critical thinking, we become incredibly easy prey.
A wild, real-world example of this gullibility actually happened in Italy not too long ago. Get this. Psychics predicted a massive earthquake based on the completely false claim that moon phases provoke seismic activity. Because of this pseudoscientific nonsense, public panic ensued. People literally fled their cities. And when a random earthquake eventually did happen somewhere, which is just due to normal background geological frequency, the psychics claimed they were right, completely reinforcing the delusion for everyone who believed them.
To fight back against that kind of dangerous gullibility, we really have to look to the philosopher David Hume. He famously said, "A wise man proportions his belief to the evidence."
Honestly, that is the absolute cornerstone of scientific skepticism. We've got to base our beliefs on hard, objective evidence rather than what we simply wish to be true or what sounds like a really compelling story.
And that leads perfectly into Section 3, Spotting Pseudoscience.
You see, science isn't just some rigid list of beliefs to memorize. It's a systematic set of methods for testing our ideas against external, objective data. And to navigate the world, we have to separate legitimate science from pseudoscience. You know, claims that dress up in a lab coat but are fundamentally flawed. The foundational rule of real science is methodological naturalism. It sounds intimidating, but it simply means that natural effects have natural causes. If you're trying to understand the world scientifically, you cannot invoke magic or the supernatural. It's not that scientists are just haters of the supernatural, it's simply that miraculous causes aren't testable. Because of this, all scientific conclusions are provisional. There is no 100% certainty. Every single belief is open to revision the second new data arrives.
Let's apply this in the real world. Consider the classic claim of the impossible water-burning engine. Every so often, someone claims they've invented a car that runs entirely on water by splitting it into hydrogen and oxygen and then burning it. And when asked why this miracle engine isn't in every car on the road, they almost always cry, "Oil company conspiracy." But hold on, basic high school thermodynamics completely disproves this. You literally have to put more energy into separating the water than you can possibly get back out of burning it. The process loses energy. When you understand basic science, you don't need to entertain massive conspiracy theories to just dismiss the impossible.
And listen, pseudoscience loves to target your wallet directly. Remember power bands? These were incredibly popular a few years ago. People were dropping $30 to $60 on what was essentially $1 worth of cheap rubber and a plastic hologram sticker. The companies claimed the hologram gave off vibrational energy that resonated with your body to boost your athletic performance. But if you have even a basic degree of scientific literacy, your metacognition should be firing off warning bells. Words like vibrational energy in this context, that is straight-up meaningless pseudoscientific jargon.
But man, did they sell millions of dollars worth of those bands. How? Because they used amazing anecdotal stories, huge celebrity sports endorsements, and these little magician-like parlor tricks that manipulated people's balance. We are completely hardwired to fall for a good story. But what happens when we demand actual objective evidence? Well, the American Council on Exercise ran a blinded study on these bands. The result? Absolutely zero effect. Nothing. The perceived benefits were entirely inside the minds of the believers. All right, let's pivot to one of my absolute favorite examples of examining evidence, Bigfoot. Think about it. If there's a giant hominid genuinely roaming the forests of North America, biology tells us there has to be a breeding population of hundreds, maybe thousands of them just to survive. So, where's the smoking gun evidence? Where is the unambiguous skeleton, the live specimen? Instead, all believers offer us is blob squatch imagery. You know, those super fuzzy photographs shot through the trees at the absolute limits of camera resolution. And when skeptics ask why we can't find just one real specimen, believers resort to special pleading, like suggesting Bigfoot can somehow turn invisible at will.
And that total lack of real evidence creates a vacuum that scammers absolutely love to fill. Take the infamous 2008 hoax. Two guys, Matt Whitten and Rick Dyer, held a massive press conference claiming they had a frozen Bigfoot corpse right there in a chest freezer. They even invited scientists to test its DNA. What was it actually? A stuffed rubber Bigfoot costume. Our own intense desire to believe, combined with our flawed memories and totally unreliable eyewitness accounts, makes us incredibly susceptible not just to innocent mistakes, but to highly calculated hoaxes.
So, how do we fight back? Let's get into Section 4, the Skeptic's Toolkit. To build up our mental defenses, we should take some advice from literature's ultimate critical thinker, Sherlock Holmes. Dr. Novella highlights this brilliant warning from Holmes. It is a capital mistake to theorize before one has data. Insensibly, one begins to twist facts to suit theories. It is so true. If you get emotionally invested in a conclusion first, your brain will absolutely contort the facts and the logic to shoehorn the data into your desired belief. We have to invest in the process of thinking itself, not just rush to the conclusion we want. And that philosophy translates into a really practical, step-by-step checklist for testing our beliefs against the real world. First, examine your premises. Are your foundational facts actually reliable? Second, check your logic. Are the connections you're making valid? Third, understand your motivations. Deep down, do you just really want this to be true? Fourth, think through the implications. If this wild claim is true, what else must be true? And does that actually make sense? And finally, check with others.
Getting an outside consensus is the absolute best way to bypass the quirky blind spots of your own individual brain.
And really, that brings us to the core thesis of Dr. Novella's teaching. Critical thinking is a defense mechanism. By embracing the scientific approach, by systematically doubting what we think we know, we put up a shield against all the endless machinations trying to deceive us. Whether they're doing it for ideological power, political gain, or just to market us a fake rubber wristband. It is an incredibly empowering, liberating tool that frees us from being weighed down by false, mutually incompatible beliefs.
Which leaves me with one final, essential question for you to ponder as we wrap up this explainer. What unquestioned beliefs are hiding in your brain right now, today? What ideas are you holding on to simply because they're the pathway of least resistance? I really challenge you to try a little metacognition today. Take a step back, look at your own absolute internal certainties, and start demanding the evidence. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and remember, keep thinking about thinking.